Before we start the story, I just want to say that these are going to be a mixture of different stories put together about the oracles, different situations they were in, what they're about, all the characters that interacted with them. Most of the stories are going to be short. Just keep that in mind when you're watching. And that's pretty much it, so I'll leave you to it. The meeting room was dim, its walls lined with monitors that displayed nothing but static. EarthGov Defense Secretary David Chang sat stiffly at the long table, his fingers drumming in quiet impatience. He had been told that these men, the oracles, wished to speak with him. He had expected generals, intelligence directors, perhaps a representative from the CEC. Instead, the door opened and 3 figures entered, their footsteps silent against the polished floor. They were dressed entirely in white, not uniforms, not suits, but something in between. Garb that looked official, yet carried no insignia, no name, no origin. Their faces were pale and unreadable, their eyes sharp but strangely detached. The air seemed to chill as they took their seats opposite Chang. "We were involved in the retrieval of the USG Ishimura," one of them said, his voice calm and deliberate. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made Chang's pulse quicken. The operation was supposed to be buried, handled under the highest levels of classification. How could these men speak of it so casually? Chang cleared his throat. "That operation falls under military jurisdiction. If you are operating without," the Oracle raised his hand, silencing him. "Our superior's authority surpasses yours, Secretary Chang. We are not to involve ourselves in civilian or military matters unless the situation directly concerns our priorities." Chang leaned back, narrowing his eyes. "And those are..." The Oracle's answers came without hesitation. "Retrieval and secrecy." He paused, letting the silence stretch, his expression hardening ever so slightly. "Especially secrecy." The words lingered in the air like a threat, unspoken but undeniable. For the first time in a long while, David Chang realized there were forces moving within EarthGov whose power reached higher than his own, and they had no intention of letting him or anyone else interfere. Julia Copelan sat alone in a sterile chamber, the air thick with recycled chill. Her wrists were bound to the table, but she carried herself with the brutal confidence of someone who believed she had made a winning play. She had betrayed the Magpies, turned over everything she knew, and most importantly, the shard of Marker 3A she had stolen. In her mind, EarthGov was her new sanctuary, her ticket out. The door whispered open. 3 figures entered. The oracles, dressed in their immaculate white. They moved like shadows that had chosen to wear flesh. No insignia, no words of greeting, only silence as they circled her. They questioned her for hours, though the word questioning hardly fit. Their voices never rose, never faltered. They simply peeled her answers from her, leaving her drained, trembling, and staring into the pale faces that betrayed no judgment. No reaction, only endless calculation. Finally, one of them leaned forward. His tone was almost gentle. "You have been most helpful." Julia seized the moment, desperation bleeding into her voice. Then you'll give me what you promised. Promotions, credit, a new identity. I did everything you asked." The Oracle's lips curved into something that might have been a smile, though it held no warmth. Slowly, he extended his hand across the table. Julia hesitated, then reached for it, thinking it's a gesture of reassurance, of acknowledgement. The ring in her finger flickered. A faint blue light pulsed once more, like a heartbeat. Julia's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes widened. A thin line of blood traced from her nose, then another from her lips. She made a choke sound, staggered, and collapsed onto the floor. Within seconds, her body was still. The Oracle withdrew his hand and studied the faint glow fading from the ring. "Gratitude has been shown," he murmured. as if nothing unusual had occurred. The other oracles gave a slight nod. To them, Julia Copelan was not a person, merely a transaction, now concluded. The shard of marker 3A lay secured in their possession. Her betrayal reduced to nothing more than another secret silence forever. The Ishimura drifted in silence, a cathedral of twisted metal and death. Its corridors still stank of burnt ozone and congealed blood. Its bulkheads smeared with the evidence of the slaughter that had unfolded there. Where others would have seen only ruin and madness, the Oracle saw purpose. They arrived without ceremony, white-clad phantoms slipping aboard the derelict ship, their footsteps silenced against the scorched deck plating. The bodies littering the hall stirred faintly, shuddering with the telltale spasms of reanimation. One of the oracles paused over a corpse, his chest already splitting open with embryonic blades. "It has begun," he said, his voice measured, not surprised. "Reanimation is already underway." There was no fear in their movements, no hesitation. They advanced with the calm of surgeons, bringing to bear their strange weapons. Rods of blackened alloy that hummed with caged light. When the necromorphs descended upon them, slashing claws, shrieking maws, the oracles answered with precision. Thin beams of coherent energy lanced through the air, cutting through bone, collapsing the monsters mid-charge. Their weapons weren't the crude ballistics of EarthGov, nor the plasma cutters of the CEC engineers. There was something altogether different, as alien as the markers themselves. Even the hive mind riding in the cargo bay could not withstand them. Its billows shook the Ishimura's frame, its mass crushing bulkheads as it lunged. The oracles raised their weapons in unison, sending converging rays of blue-white energy. The creature convulsed, its shrieks dissolving into a wet silence as its colossal frame collapsed into steaming ruin. The ship was quiet again, save for the low thrum of failing systems. Through the wreckage they moved with a singular focus. Every glance, every word aimed at one goal, the marker. Their search led them deep into the gutted decks. The shadows stretched long, and the weight of the black marker's influence still pressed against the mind. There, at the threshold of their objective, they found him, Stefan Schneider. His eyes burned with defiance, his body weary, but unbroken by all he had endured aboard the Ishimura. The oracles regarded him not as a man, but as an obstacle. In their silence lay the promise of confrontation. One final barrier between them and the secrets buried within the marker. The chamber where they found Stefan Schneider was half collapsed, the air thick with ash and the scent of blood. Emergency lights shuddered across the walls, casting the three figures in white in an almost spectral glow. Schneider stood with his back to the broken console, clutching the weapon he had salvaged from the ruins. But his eyes never left them. "You could have turned back," Schneider said, his voice hoarse but defiant. "Taken the shards, left me to rot, so why chase me?" The lead oracle tilted his head, the movement as precise as a machine. His tone carried neither malice nor sympathy, only a cold inevitability. "Because we need to know what you know, what you saw." Schneider laughed bitterly. "You could have just asked." The second oracle stepped closer, the strange ring on his hand catching the flicker of the light. "You do not possess the language to tell us," he replied. "Your mind touched the shard. It changed you. Only through you can we glimpse the truth it carried." Schneider's grip tightened on his weapon. "And the necromorphs, all of this?" He gestured to the wall smeared with claw marks, the husk that twitched in the shadows. "An unfortunate side effect," an oracle said flatly. "The marker is purpose. Everything else is collateral." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, as if some unseen signal passed between them, the oracles advanced. Their weapons hummed with restrained energy, ready to cut him down. Schneider fired first. Desperate bursts of plasma lighting the chamber. One oracle staggered but did not fall, his weapon raised in eerie calm. The other lashed out with his ring, the blue glow searing the air inches from Schneider's face. The struggle was brutal and short, a dance of survival against beings who seemed beyond human. Yet Schneider was no stranger to desperation. He ducked beneath the humming beam and threw himself towards the hangar beyond. There, hidden among the debris, was a sleek, unfamiliar craft the oracles had brought. Smaller than a military shuttle, its surface shimmered with cloaked plating. A stealth ship. Schneider tore through the controls, praying he could decipher the alien configuration. Alarms blared as the Necromorphs poured into the chamber, drawn by the commotion. He caught one last glimpse of the oracles, calm even in the face of onslaught, their weapons carving arcs of light as the creatures swarmed them. Then the engines roared to life, and the Ishimura fell away into the void behind him. Schneider sat trembling in the pilot's seat, the stolen ship vanishing into the darkness, leaving the two oracles to their fate, consumed by the very plague they had dismissed as an unfortunate side effect. The Titan Station outbreak had reduced the great medical hub into a carnal house of chaos. Screams echoed through sterile corridors, punctured by streaks of necromorphs tearing through walls and flesh alike. Amid the madness, two figures moved with uncanny composure. They were dressed in white, immaculate coats that never seemed to stain despite the gore splattering the floors among them. Their steps were deliberate, their voices low and precise. To most they looked like physicians, or perhaps administrators, but those who glimpsed their eyes knew better. There was nothing human in their calm, nothing comforting in their presence. Their purpose was singular. Lexine Weller. EarthGov had marked her as unique, her mind seemingly immune to corrosive whispers of the marker signal. The Oracle program regarded her not as a woman, but as data wrapped in flesh, a living key to secrets they were desperate to unlock. The psych ward was their focus. They questioned all the survivors they met, though questions could be amounted to quiet intimidation. Their words were minimal, their meaning clear. They would find her. Colonel Victor Bartlett dragged Lexine Weller through the wreckage of Titan Station, his iron grip around her arm. The Necromorph outbreak had turned the city into a slaughterhouse. Bartlett's mind was fixed on his orders. Tideman had labeled Lexine a key subject, and key subjects were to be terminated. When the two oracles appeared, dressed in white, Bartlett's patience snapped. He leveled his weapon at them, eyes burning with suspicion. "Why are you following me?" he demanded. "You've got your orders. Timing was clear. Terminate the subjects. That includes her." He shook Lexine roughly. The oracles exchanged a glance, their calm composure unbroken. One step forward, his voice as soft and clinical as ever. "Our orders come from higher than Tideman." Bartlett sneered. "Higher? There is no higher. He runs this station." Without another word, the nearest oracle raised his hand. The ring in his finger shimmered with a faint blue glow, and suddenly Bartlett froze mid-breath. His weapon slipped from his grip, clattering to the floor as his body locked in place. He strained against the invisible grip, realization dawning with horror. Stasis. The second oracle calmly stepped past the paralyzed officer and seized Lexine by the arm. She struggled, but it was no use. "The subject will come with us," one of them murmured. "Her value exceeds your comprehension." They marched her towards the shuttle bay, where their sleek EarthGov gunship waited. Its ramp extended like a predator's jaw. For a moment, their mission seemed secure. Then, two shadows stirred. Two infectors, screeching monstrosities with tendrils like knives, descended upon the oracles. The agents barely had time to react. Rings flared. Weapons snapped to life, but the infectors were too fast. Too many limbs at once. Screams, brief, muffled, cut short, echoed through the bay. Lexine stumbled back, watching in horror as the immaculate white uniforms were shredded. The flesh beneath pierced and rewritten. Within moments, the oracles themselves rose again, jerking, spasming. Their pale forms twisted into twitchers. The glow of the rings flickered and died as the infection claimed them fully. Their authority, their secrets, their calm inevitability, all erased in seconds by the very force they had once dismissed as a side effect.